بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أهلا وسهلا فيكم كلياتكم بمحاضراتنا اليوم بالانترفيو سكيلز وركشوب. سامز مشكورة عم تساعدنا بهاي المحاضرات، وفي عنا اليوم راح نكون عملنا الوركشوب العاشر خلال العشر سنوات الماضية. هاي المسيرة بلشت من 10 سنوات بجهود الشباب الموجودين بشيكاغو، من بيناتهم الدكتور شادي لاطة، من بيناتهم الدكتور باسل أتاسي، وفي أكيد أطباء كانوا قبلهم عم بيساعدوا بهذا الموضوع. أنا كنت محظوظ إني حضرت هاي الوركشوب ب 2009، والحمد لله استفدت كتير، وكانت موجودة بلوكيشن واحد هو شيكاغو، وكانت المحاضرات مدتها حوالي 4-5 ساعات بين محاضرات، وكان في ماك انترفيوز. اليوم الحمد لله خلال السنوات الماضية اتطورنا أكثر، واليوم إن شاء الله في عنا محاضرات أونلاين ويبينار عبارة عن محاضرتين. هدول المحاضرتين هي محاضرتين جدد ما انعطت من قبل. أنا بنصحكم إذا بتفتحوا على الهاندز أوت اللي موجودة عندكم بالويبينار على جنب، بالهاندز أوت في ملف موجود فيه رابطين. هدول اللينكس بيفتحوا لكم على يوتيوب فيديوز اللي هن المحاضرات اللي عطيناهم السنة الماضية. 4 محاضرات السنة الماضية، واليوم إن شاء الله راح نعطي محاضرتين جدد. طبعا هاي السنة إن شاء الله راح يكون في عنا أونلاين ويبينار لهدول المحاضرتين، وبعدين في عنا ماك انترفيوز بأربع مدن بأمريكا اللي هي شيكاغو، ديترويت، وكليفلاند، وهيوستن، وإن شاء الله الجميع بيستفيد. أنا ما راح أطول كتير. أول شيء بدي أقدم حالي هيك على السريع. محمد السيد، internal medicine hospitalist بألاباما، واليوم في عنا إن شاء الله محاضرتين. هي المحاضرة الأولى راح تكون للدكتور عمار حتاحت، how to start a dialogue with a program director، والمحاضرة الثانية هي للدكتور طارق اليوسف، it's about professionalism. طبعا نحن انا راح احاول استقبل كل الاسئله تبعكم. ابعتوا لي اياها على الكويستشنز، واكتبوا لي اياها. بتمنى انه تستنوا شوي، لا تبعتوا السؤال مباشره، انه استنوا لحتى تسمعوا المحاضره بالاول وبعدين اكتبوا الاسئله تبعكم. بنفس الوقت ان شاء الله بس نخلص المحاضرات راح نبلش questions وانسرز لمدة نص ساعة إلى 3-4 ساعة، وبنحاول نجاوب على كل الأسئلة الممكنة. ف يا ريت تبعتونا أسئلتكم على questions، تكتبوا لنا إياها كتابة. بالنسبة لللوكيشنز اللي هي شيكاغو، ديترويت، وهيوستن، وكليفلاند، لا أنا ما بدي إياكم تكتبوا لنا أي شيء. إذا عندكم مايكروفون يا ريت إنه بالأخير بنعطيكم مجال بتسألوا الأسئلة تبعكم كلياتها مع بعض، سجلوها على ورقة وبعدين بعتون احكوا لنا إياها كلياتها ورا بعض، كل لوكيشن لوحده. إذا ما عندكم مايكروفون مو مشكلة، اكتبوا لنا إياها على ورقة وبعدين ابعتوا لنا إياها إما عن طريق المسج، ابعتوا لي إياها بالنسبة لراتب أو سليمان ابعتوا لي إياها كمسج على التليفون، وأنا بقرأ الأسئلة إن شاء الله. المهم إنه نحاول نجاوب على أكبر قدر من الأسئلة. ما بدي أطول أكثر من هيك، بدنا نبلش مع الدكتور عمار حتاحت اللي هو he graduated from University of Damascus in 1988. He did his internal medicine residency at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital, Michigan, and then he did senior and chief resident in the same hospital, and then he did then he was in Stanford faculty development. He did also an MPH in health management and policy. حاليا he is the director centralized IRB McLaren Healthcare Corporation in Flint, Michigan. الله يعطيه العافية، وشكرا جزيلا على حضورك وعلى يعني مشاركتك معنا، وخصوصا باللوكيشن تبع ديترويت. واكيد الموجودين بديترويت راح يكونوا محظوظين بوجودك. راح بعطيكم السكرين هلا وتقدروا آه، طيب تمام. انا هلا عم بسمع عفوا عم شوف هلا السلايدات تبعكم.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. طبعا دكتور عمار, it's your option if you want to talk in English or if you want to talk in Arabic. It's all up to you. No push for anything. It's your choice.
Okay, so can say I split my life half in Syria, half here, and everybody's going to be interviewing in English, right? And we'll be preferentially speaking in English. And if you have a specific question to answer in Arabic, I will. How does that work? You guys are good for it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
My assumption that all interviews will be English. So
yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, and if you have a question, and so initially when I actually got when I was asked to do this, I don't know how many years I've been doing this. Yeah, I wasn't really given a title, so I was told to talk about getting into residency. So this issue about how do you start a dialogue with the program director just came up like in about 3 minutes ago. But we'll get to it, that's fine. There are a few slides I'm going to then brush over quickly, and they are, I think, probably part of Ahmed. It's probably part of the previous presentations from the last few years, I think. So when I go, you guys can see the screen? Okay. So it's choosing specialty, choosing a program, what programs look for, how to get an interview, and the elements of successful interviewing. And I think this is really where this particular talk was designed to be, is the elements of successful interviewing, talking to the program directors and what have you. So I'm going to probably quickly go over the reason for why you choose a specialty. And I'm assuming many of you already know what kind of specialty they want to go into, right? Thank you. So if those are in the room, you could still answer the question. I've been lecturing for 20-some years. I was on the faculty at Wayne State, and I'm used to more interaction. So I don't want you guys to just look at me without really some kind of interaction. So some of the key things that you want to keep in mind. One is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? If you're going to come across a specialty that's not going to make you happy in 10 years, probably it's not worth being done. I'm telling you this from experience. I finished my medical school in 1988. That's when I graduated from Damascus. I've been here since then, actually.
عفوا دكتور عمار, نحن ما عم نسمع هلا اي شيء.
هلا عم تسمعني؟
ايه هلا عم بسمعك منيح.
Perfect. Yeah, أخونا Jihad was trying to improve on things, and I tell you, I was told in my office never to touch things. My office manager says, leave it alone. It's working fine. So, all right. The other thing is flexibility within a specialty. Some specialties are very well defined. They're very well maturated. So think about your cells when they're fully maturated, somewhere like that. Subspecialties in particular. If you still want to have some flexibility afterwards, then you start with the primary care, they go into specific specialties. So these are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself. Am I already committed to a specific specialty, or do I still kind of have questions about what I want to do? Mobility, geographic mobility. So some specialties, believe it or not, will not let you be in a rural area. Some specialties are by design, they're tied into big centers. And some can allow you to go and float all over the country. Do you want to be hospital or office-based? I know for many of you, it's like, what is he asking these questions for? How is that going to, I just need to get in. Trust me, you need to have these questions in mind, because once you get in and you're tied into it for the rest of your life, you're going to regret that decision if you don't keep these things in mind. Lifestyle and family commitment, once again. Do I want to be a neurosurgeon, or do I want to be a cardiovascular surgeon who's going to be called every single night? Maybe not. Maybe I'd rather have my weekends off. Think about these questions. Now, the reason I bring this up as far as choosing a specialty, many of you feel like you do not have an option. Okay, the reality is that our previous applicants have actually gone into neurosurgery, they've gone into surgery, they've gone into ophthalmology. It depends on how much time you're willing to invest in this endeavor. So there's really not a single specialty that's off limit. The question is, do I want to spend 4 years in research until I get my ophthalmology spot? But keep these things in mind. It's a trade-off. And then the resume, of course, we'll talk about that as well in details. If choosing a program, just remember when you try to choose a program that your residency is only a temporary position. It's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it may be. It's a stepping stone. You're not going to be there forever. So often people are like, I don't want to go to this bad place in New York. Well, you know what? It's only for 3 years. It's like your military service. Like Askari, you're going to go through it. Think about it as well as an introduction to a future location. So if I'm thinking about moving to Arizona, eventually if I like to live in Arizona, you know what? I'm going to try to do my residency actually in Arizona because I want to test it out, see how it works. University versus community-based programs, you know what? It depends on what you want to do afterwards. If you're going to go out and practice, any program is good. If I have higher aspirations and I want to be a researcher, then probably I wouldn't go to a community place. Do you want to do a fellowship or not? Lateral mobility within a hospital. What that means that some programs allow you actually to get into their other programs as well. So you do first year of neurology, then you decide I'm going to switch over to internal medicine, vice versa. Some programs do not allow you to do that, and these things you could find out fairly quickly. Stability of the program. That is one of the hottest things that are going on right now. If you guys remember that many of the programs are closing, some are opening. Some are merging with the ACGME and the American Osteopathic Association. So if you apply to a program, make sure they have good history, and they will be there for the next 3, 4, 5 years until you finish your residency. Personnel of the program and your personality. Sometimes they don't really match. And you guys get to know during the interview, is this a guy that I want to work with for the next 3 years or not? I said already it's temporary, but sometimes you can't even tolerate that individual for that 1 year or 2. Same thing with the surrounding staff members. You'll find these things for the interview process. Now let's talk about the programs, and I'll come to the program directors in a minute. So what do programs look for? Now, you notice that I put scores on the bottom, as well as research and publications. And the reason being that the programs, when they call you for an interview, they already accepted your scores, they already accepted your research background, they already accepted your visa status. Otherwise, they would not have called you for the interview. So they're not going to base their opinion highly on those as much as the other factors. You already have passed the first test. Does that make sense? Language skills. So when you go for the interview, one of the key things that actually the first input that the program gets is from the receptionist, the lady or the man who's going to basically greet you at the door, or when you go up to their office and say, hi, good morning, etc., etc., I'm going to start making comments about your ability to speak in English. That is the truth. Believe it or not, people will start smirking, they will start kind of winking behind your back. You could barely speak English, something like that. These things do take place all the time. They will comment on your outlook, on your attire, on your hair. They will. This is not a joke. I know you guys look at me like, what is it? They programs. So the secretary to the program director has a lot of influence, not necessarily on the eventual outcome, but on giving some feedback to the program director and to the chief residents. Don't underestimate how influential these people are in these programs. They do not make the final decision, but certainly they will have an influence on how other people perceive you for the whole day of your interview. Okay. Second thing they look for is your personality and your family stability. Programs do not want people who are going to the bar every night. They do not want people who are partying every night. It doesn't matter what specialty you're looking into. They want somebody who's hardworking, dedicated to his home and to his work. So flamboyant kind of stuff does not really work very well at the interview. You're describing, you know, I spend 20 hours on the soccer field and I go to different places. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who's either family-oriented, committed, or work-committed. Somebody's going to stay in the area to serve the community if they can. And that's bullet number 3 is really commitment to the program and locale. Those are the things that you have to convey to your program director during the interview. Okay. They want to know that you're actually committed, even though they know it's temporary for 3 years, but they want to know during these 3 years you're going to give it your best. You're going to give it your all. You're going to be working 110% every single day during that time to serve the community that you're in. Insider's input and recommendation letter. So if you have somebody who's in the program, when you guys are applying, and I come to that, I think, in the next slide, make sure that if you know a fellow, if you know a resident of the program beforehand, talk to them, have them put a word for you before you go for the interview. Not after, before you go for the interview, if you can. Recommendation letters are the same. If you have a very strong recommendation letter from a University of New York and then you're applying there, make sure that that person who wrote your letter could actually make that additional phone call to the program director. Personal relationships have a lot of influence on your interview. Like I said, it's like the secretary. They don't make the final decision, but it helps quite a bit in shaping the decision of the program director or their perception of you. Okay, so how to get an interview. And I think this was also covered in one of the workshops from last year, so I'm not going to harp on it. Start early as you can. Volunteer at desired programs. If you think I want to be at the University of Michigan, you're going to start volunteering tomorrow. If you're going to be at Wayne State, you're going to start tomorrow. If you're going to be at the University of Chicago, you're going to start tomorrow. Do not delay things. Time goes by so fast, you have no idea, and things get very slow on the medical side once you're in. Talk to the people. If you know that you want to be at a particular program, particular state, talk to the people that are in that program early on. You may know them, you may not know them. It doesn't hurt to send them an email. I have some questions about your program, etc. Send it to a second-year resident, somebody that you may recognize the name or sounds Arabic name or something like, or friends of friends who live in that town. Okay? Study the programs, of course. You want to know everything about all the programs that you apply to. That's a given. Every little detail. Like I said, you may very well decide, I don't want to be there for 3 years. Beef up your resume, score research and publications, apply everywhere whenever possible. And the reason I put this one in, because every people say, I have really good scores, I can get in anywhere. No, you'd be shocked. This not only applies for you guys, it also applies for our US graduates as well. They become a little bit cocky, and I have really good scores. I'm only going to apply at this university program, this university program. They don't get an interview. Or when they get an interview, they get declined, they get rejected. Because the programs eventually actually make the choice. You have so many applicants for each spot that actually the program directors get to choose. They want this guy, this guy, or this guy. And I will tell you some of the things that actually take place in the interviewing, during the interview itself, that will determine if you're going to get in or not. Okay, follow up and use insiders. The same people that you had asked to put a word in for you, ask them what happened afterwards, right? How did things go? Is there something I could go back and fix? All right, so let's talk about then the actual interview and talking to the program director and so forth. So you're the program director. You have about 20 applicants for 2 spots, right? And I already told you what the programs are looking for. Put yourself in his or her shoes. You have this guy who comes in. I have other graduates as well from either the same medical school or other medical schools. And I need to choose 2 out of 10 or 20. What do you guys want to have in that particular individual? In your mind right now, those who are here, or even those who are online today. What do you want? Good personality, right. I want somebody who I would work with for the next 3 years. Because these guys don't know you. They know your scores, right? They know your research background. They have read your letter of recommendation, which is pretty much standard for everybody. They're all very good, hardworking people. They all are very smart, if you already know that. But they are looking actually for your good personality during the interview. So they're going to be looking forward to how you communicate. Are you friendly? Are you receptive? Are you stubborn? Are you hard-headed? Things that you don't think of off the bat. Okay, what else have we looked for? You can read off the slide, that's fine. Right, correct. They want to see the commitment not only in your words, but they want to see it in your eyes and in your language, in your body language. People here are very sensitive to your body language. And as you guys know, that 80%, more than 80% of communication is really not spoken language, it's just body language. Right? In the interview, that's something that's going to come up. People will see how enthusiastic you are about being in their place. Even if you tell, I would really love to come here. Yeah, that's not going to work. Right? You want to show them that you really are interested, that their program is unique. That's where you want to be. Like I said, there are 10 other applicants that are going for the same spot. They don't need to take you. What's different about you than the other person? All right, so let me go back into the list. Promptness. It's extremely important. I can't tell you how important this is for any job you go for. Any job. I interview people all the time for jobs. You know what? If they come in late to my office 5 minutes, they're not going to get the job. They will not get the job for a simple reason. There are so many applicants, right? They all showed up on time. This person did not show up on time. Now, I'm not going to give you the benefit of. I'm not going to say, well, he got in traffic, what have you, because you should have accounted for that as well. So if you're in a place where you're going to be interviewed, let's say half an hour from where you are, and maybe even an hour, and you know there's usually a traffic jam in the morning, you know what? You're going to spend the night before closer to the facility. Don't leave it up to chance. Wintertime in particular, for those who are interviewing in the northern part of the country, you know how it is with the snow, right? One day you wake up and everything is fine. Next day you wake up and there's snow on the ground, and it's going to take you an hour to get there instead of the 5 minutes. Rush hour, traffic, accidents happen. So keep in mind that if I'm going to be interviewed, let's say my agenda says, my itinerary says it's 9 o'clock, I'm going to be there at 8:30 if I can. That's my plan, not 5 to 9, not 10 to 9, at least 8:30. By the time that you get there, rest, get to the parking, get to know where you guys have also noticed, if those of you who have already interviewed for hospitals are amazed, right? It takes you from the parking lot to the office when I go at least a good 5-10 minutes, depending on how big the facility is. And then you get lost in one set of elevators rather than the other. So give yourself plenty of time ahead of it. But you do not want to be late. If you're going to be late for any reason, make sure that you communicate that to the secretary who's going to be actually greeting you at the door or at the office. Professionalism. What they're looking for as a program directors, they're not looking for students, right? They're looking for other doctors to come and join the program. So we're looking for people who are doctors. You all are graduates, correct? Everybody is graduate from medical school. You all are doctors. So what they're really looking for is another doctor to join the team, not another student. They have plenty of students. So when you go in as a professional physician, dressed like a professional physician, who's ready to go to work. Literally, think about it. I'm going that day, I'm ready to go to work. I'm going to be doing rounds that morning. So as you prepare yourself from a professionalism perspective, think about, I'm going to do rounds tomorrow. That's how ready I am. I'm going in my suit, I'm all dressed up, I have read this stuff, I'm sharp, I slept well, and I'm ready to do rounds. That's professionalism. And I think the next talk today is going to be about that specifically, and I'll leave that up to them as well. Confidence and humility. What does that mean? Program directors, like I said, they're looking for doctors. They're not looking for tentative people. You got to be on call July 3rd. You're going to have to make decisions. They don't want someone who's like, maybe, maybe not, I don't know, I'm not really sure. No. They want people who are actually confident in their abilities. You guys know what you bring into the table. You've already passed your boards, you know yourself, you know you could do it. So you need to convey that in your interview as well. As you walk through the door, you're walking with enough confidence. Now, confidence does not mean that you're going to become arrogant or cocky at all. Confidence means that you know what you have to, what you can present, what you can provide to the program, but you're not going to say, I'm really smart. My resume, this or that. It for 3 years when I was younger. And now we talk about U.S. graduates who were not allowed in the medical school. They had good scores, they had good research, and basically we didn't put them in. You know why? Because they would come in with that kind of an attitude. Like, I'm doing you a favor by coming to your program. No, you're not doing me a favor. There are plenty of applicants. I don't care how good your scores are. I don't care how much research you've done. So somehow you have to balance between your confidence and your humility when coming to the program. Okay. Commonality with the interviewer. All right, so we all like people who are like us, right? So what do you have in common with your program director you're going to interview? Assuming that his name is Jack Smith and he's white and has blue eyes. What do you have in common? You don't have skin color. No, believe it or not, once you have a name that's Arabic, you don't have skin color. Sorry to let you guys know, most of you will not pass on a skin color. And I'm just being blunt. What's your last name? So, no, not necessarily. You guys would be surprised, but you may. I mean, let's put it this way: you may. Well, we haven't got into the accent yet. We'll get there. But which school did you graduate from? Okay, so they already got your background, right? So you can name yourself whatever you want to name yourself. And this is, again, some of the biases that are inherent in the interviewing process. We all have our own biases, right? So what you want to do with the commonality is look for things that are very common. It's not going to be the skin color. It's not going to be necessarily the name. What else? What do you guys share with the program director? Yeah. So you share 98% of genes, probably more than 98. 99% of the genes are common to a human being, right? Or so. But there are also these common interests. We all have the same humanistic values across the board. So when you talk to the program director, there are a lot of things that you have in common that you don't appreciate. It doesn't matter what religion he is or she is, what color they could be black, they could be white, they could be Arab, they could be Indian. You have no idea you're going to be interviewing. Even if it was, by the way, just to let you know, even if it was a Syrian program director, does not necessarily give you an advantage. Because they still have the same number of applicants, they still are looking for these common things that we all share as a humanistic values. And these are some things you're going to start looking for. So you walk into the room and you're looking for common interests. Like what? Okay, so maybe that's not necessarily a certainty, but most of us, that's what I was asking when I walked in, if anybody watched the game yesterday. If you have not watched the Michigan State game yesterday, I don't know what was going on in Chicago or Texas or anywhere else, but I'll tell you, if you did not watch the Michigan State game yesterday, then obviously you're not a Michigander. I mean, it's really that. I mean, it tells me that you're not interested in being in Michigan if you don't know what's going on. So one is sports. And when you look around in the room, so you're walking into the program director's room, and you're looking around, right? And you're not being stupid. You're not being, you're just actually studying what's in the room. So you're going to be seeing some trophies. People leave their family pictures on the walls. They may very well leave something that's pertinent to their son winning a game or being in a football team or something. So this will be something that you will be able to talk about that will show that you have common interests. But you need to know what that is, right? This is what I said about studying the program. Any city that you go to, if you guys know, okay, Dr. Muhammad, do you know who's playing this afternoon? Guys in Chicago?
In Chicago, you mean the people who are...
Are you here? Can you hear us in Chicago? Okay, I guess you can't hear us. You told me you can't hear us. So the Bears will be in Detroit this afternoon, right? Chicago Bears will be playing Detroit Lions this afternoon. That's a big event. So if my interview is tomorrow, whether it's here in Chicago or whether it's in Detroit, you need to know that they played yesterday. And you may or may not be able to tell about the score, but doesn't mean that the program director is aware of the scores. Just you know that they would know that you're interested in what their town has. What are the commonality things that you could actually highlight? Kids. If you have kids and you see pictures of kids, something that you could certainly talk about. Where they go to college, right? How do they like it there? They're somewhere else in another state. Do they find it difficult, and so forth. What other commonality? The program directors. Remember, I said they could be Syrian, they could be Indian, they could be really anything. Think about the human aspect of every individual. Maybe food, exactly. So you know what? Maybe I like Indian food, and I'm going to ask them, is there good Indian restaurants here, or Middle Eastern restaurants, or something like that? Or do you like Middle East? Now, these things in the interview, and let's see, might as well talk about it right now. How do you bring it up during the interview? Most of these interviews are already structured, right? The program director already has a set of questions that he's going to go through. You guys have already memorized these questions, right? I hope you all know the questions that the program directors will ask about your background. They will give you some scenarios sometimes. What's the best attributes that you could provide for our program? What's your strength? What are your weaknesses? All these things that you are prepared. I see just head on. I don't know if you guys that you are prepared to answer these questions or not. But these are the kind of questions that you should be ready to answer. They will ask you, so what are your strengths? Remember I said about being confident without being too cocky or arrogant. What are your weaknesses? You should know what your weaknesses are, and you should tell them, yes, you know what, I have a weakness, A, B, or C, because if you say I don't have any, guess what? You're not a human being, of course, right? We're good. Okay. So this is the kind of question that you need to prepare beforehand. You don't want to stumble during your interview trying to come up with something. I'm going to ask you sometimes personal questions. And I ask you, you know, what happens when you're too tired? Can you still function? No, I'm tired, but I have a way of staying up and alert and being able to function, right? So these are the things you have to prepare for beforehand as far as the interview. So how do you steer then the interview itself? In the interview, the interviewer will, like I said, will have a set of questions, and sometimes they pause. Sometimes they may not pause, depending on who's interviewing you. If they don't pause, then you can certainly elaborate. You can start nodding your head and say, I agree, and by the way, right? So you do not want to interrupt them in the middle of their sentence. That's not one that's going to be no. But sometimes, like I said, they pause, and if they don't pause, you can just nod your head and say, I agree with what you said, and by the way, this is what I've seen, this is my experience, etc., etc. They will leave you some few minutes towards the end of your interview to ask questions. If there are things that you are not able to convey during your interview, you should use these 5 minutes to present them or to ask them. Don't say, I don't have any more questions, okay? Because you may have a comment. You may have something else. If you say, I don't have any question, often it means that I'm really not interested, or I really have all the answers. You wasted an opportunity to bring up the things that you're really very proud of. So the last point that I want to make is this issue about what do you bring to the table, right? So we already talked about knowing the program, knowing the city. Why should I take you as opposed to the other 9 applicants? What is so unique about you? Now, program directors may or may not ask you that question, right? You will somehow have to put in your interview somewhere, like I said, either when they pause or when they ask you or when there's an opportunity to bring about food, family, is when you highlight your strength as an individual. They already have your personal statement. They already have your resume. They already have your CV. They already have your background. There are certain things that you have to convey in your personality, in your enthusiasm. That's what does not show in your paper, right? Your enthusiasm, your smile, your friendliness. That doesn't show anywhere. That's why you have the interview. Otherwise, we don't even need the interview in the first place. So when you come into the interview, and I'm going to close with this. I think you had 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes. So when you think about you as the program director, and I'm very serious about this, pretend that you're the program director for a second, and you're interviewing yourself, right? And you want to do what's best for the program. Why would you want to take yourself as if you're the program director, right? You're playing both roles. Why would I want to take me if I need the best benefit for my program? What do I bring into the table? What's unique about me as opposed to the next person? These are the things that you have to highlight at the time of your interview. You may very well be, like I said, you're passionate about your profession. You're dedicated. You're hard work. Something that has to be conveyed to the interviewer, not only in words, it has to be conveyed in body language, in your emotions, in your effort. I mean, it has to be apparent to the individual. All right, and with that, then I will stop. Let me take questions now, or no.
الله يعطيك العافية دكتور عمار، وشكرا جزيلا على المحاضرة رائعة طبعا.
هي I didn't know if you got my comment about the bears and the lions.
والله I have no idea about these things. يعني I think if I'm coming to Chicago, I think I need to learn more about them.
Very good.
شكرا جزيلا لك ويعطيك العافية. أنا يعني إن شاء الله بطلب من دكتور طارق اليوسف إنه يبدأ محاضرته إذا هو هلأ فاضي معنا. أنا راح أعمل ميوت لديترويت هلأ، وإن شاء الله بعد ما يخلص الدكتور طارق محاضرته بنفتح الأسئلة للجميع، وبتمنى أن الدكتور عمار يعني إذا بتشاركنا بالإجابة على الأسئلة إن شاء الله بعد محاضرة الدكتور طارق. عم بدور أوكي هاي. السلام عليكم دكتور طارق، معي؟
وعليكم السلام، سمعيني؟
اي انا سمعانك مزبوط دكتور طارق. راح اعطيك ال راح اعطيك هلا طبعا الدكتور طارق اليوسف. الدكتور طارق اليوسف هو معنا اليوم، هو خريج جامعة دمشق. هو عمل internal medicine residency ب Cook County Hospital. بعدين he was a chief resident in Cook County Hospital, and then he went to cardiology fellowship in Cook County, and then he did the chief fellow in the same hospital, Cook County Hospital, and then he did interventional cardiology fellowship at the University of Nebraska. وهلا he is currently an interventional cardiologist at Lake County Heart and Vascular. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Tariq. I'm sure everybody will benefit a lot from this lecture, especially that professionalism is very important for us as international medical graduates. And inshallah, we'll go through the slides. So Allah يعطيك العافية, you can go ahead.
أيوة، السلام عليكم جميعا وجماعات، الله يعطيكم العافية. شكرا للدكتور محمد على تنظيم المحاضرات، إن شاء الله الناس يستفيدوا منها. طيب أنا ما راح نطول كثير، راح نحاول إن شاء الله نحكي خلال 15 دقيقة عن البروفيشناليزم باعتباره شوي توبيك حرج يعني وله ملابساته. 80% of professionalism is common sense. 20% is probably culture related, and we're going to allude into which parts of this is related just to the culture. No doubt that the medical professionalism is the heart and soul of medicine. You're going to find this throughout your professional career. You're going to hear this word again and again as an interviewee, as a resident, as a fellow, when you become a physician, like an attending. It's going to be chasing you throughout. So very important to actually to secure the basics of it. I think it applies to everything that you're going to be doing in the future as a physician. So let's kind of put together some thoughts on this. As I said, it's this word you're going to hear. It's going to be a big part of your evaluation as a resident and as a fellow, and even as a physician in the future. When you show a good character as an applicant, the people who are actually interviewing you are going to be pushing for you actually, because they do believe that if you look professional, you can only continue to improve. If at this point you're professional enough, then they will only help you to get better, not worse, in the future. On the other hand, it is considered very risky to accept an applicant, no matter how good he is on paper, who appears lacking professionalism. نحن احيانا بنقول بالمثل العامي يعني انه تفاحه واحده بتخرب سحاره، انه sometimes all what you need is a bad behavior resident or fellow or etc. to destroy the whole program and interrupt its integrity. Now, there are so many other ways that you can demonstrate professionalism as an applicant, and now we're talking about mostly things related to the applicant and to the interview. It is already late to talk about what you could have done in your application and stuff, but there are two parts that you need still to secure before your interview, before the interview day. Number one, make sure that you arrive the night before and you familiarize yourself with the area, with the hospital, where you're going to be interviewing, what time you're going to be leaving. Make sure that all the details are covered, because next day the single most important step probably in your interview day is the first few seconds of your interview, as we're going to be seeing. It's going to be arriving on time, being very, very professional and very accurate in where you get to the interview. The other part is make sure you know the program that you're interviewing at. When I say you know, it's not like knowing the name or I know somebody there or something like that. You really need to know some information about the program. You need to know whether it's like what is the focus of the program, is it academia oriented, is it research oriented, is it clinically oriented, etc., etc. The structure, how many residents usually they have. All these things, those are basic information that you need to secure before you go there, because you don't want to go there and sound like somebody who knows nothing about the program that he's applying for. That is considered non-professional. Things related also to your interview day are things that are done by email or by mail. Make sure that you email only those people to whom your messages actually pertain to. Don't send mass or chain letters. Those are the things that I'm going to talk about actually are things that are from real life. I've seen people who, for some reason, they think that if they CC or BCC the program director on an email that is going to the secretary, that's going to make their chances better actually of passing a message. And this happens usually when you're desperate to do something or you're desperate to send your email to the person who is responsible for replying to your email. Don't send it to everybody. Number two, make a point of responding to your messages or emails promptly. And I'm talking here not about like, I'm talking about like if they requested something, usually you should respond within 24 hours. This is considered very professional. You might answer as simple as soon as I get these documents, for example, I'm going to send it to you. But make sure you answer immediately. Always use the spell check and grammar check before sending your messages. This is very important, and it's very critical to many people. Actually, the associate program director at Cook County said once that any typo mistake is going to take an applicant out of my consideration. Her reasoning was because that means they did not actually, if they are serious, they would have read what they wrote and they would have actually found that this was wrong or that should be corrected. So if they did not pay attention to that, then they are not serious about what they are doing. And then make sure that you include your contact information, especially a telephone number, in your message or email. Now, you only get one first impression, and that first impression is incredibly important. And you have, as we're going to see, research shows that you have a few seconds to form your first impression. There are ABCs, actually, of how you create your image when you go for an interview. And the ABC stands for A for appearance, B for behavior, and C for communication. We're going to go over those a little bit in more details shortly. Make sure that you arrive early, please, for your interview. This is very, very important. It's crucial. Being late is considered unprofessional. If for one reason or the other, there is something major, you did everything that is supposed to happen, and you still did not make it on time, please make sure that when the time approaches, you call the secretary or whoever is going to be picking you up to tell him or her that you're going to be late for like 10 minutes for this and this reason. This is considered professional. If you need to change or cancel an interview date, please, it should be done as soon as possible so that another applicant may interview. Now, you might say or ask, well, how would that affect me? Why would if I have to cancel the interview, why would I cancel it now? Or like, why would it matter to me what time should I cancel it? It does not matter to you, actually, if you cancel. But it does matter as a reputation for if this program sent for only 3 or 4 Syrian applicants and 2 of them or 1 of them even canceled unprofessionally, then actually it's going to build up a bad reputation. It's going to affect other people's chances, and this is not professional. You're supposed to be a professional physician, a team player. Sometimes you are watched during the interview, even if you're not interviewing, meaning when you're sitting down at lunch, when you're, whether you're participating in group discussions, these are all going to be watched by different people. And they're going to report to the program director / chief resident. So pay attention to those details. We're going to go to the appearance. Number one, dress professionally. I'm going to put a few slides about this because I don't think actually Syrian people have a problem with this, to be honest with you. Number two, smile, smile, and smile. This is a culture in the professional world in North America. I know this does not apply to some other countries in Europe, for example, in some of the European countries, but in North America, where you guys are applying, this is very, very important. Good eye contact is key. I think most of you know that already from the USMLE exams, the clinical skill exam. It's key for success. Firm handshake is also a key, and I'm going to show a little more details about the handshakes. Make sure that you sit upright, you maintain your professional body language, don't slouch, don't bite your nails, don't pick up at your hair, and for the handshake, as we said, this is research. You have 30 seconds to make a first impression, and the handshake, getting it right, like I know it might sound so basic, but it is very important actually to get it right. Because as they say, a good handshake is worth 1,000 words. It's usually 3 to 5 seconds during which you're going to be introducing yourself. There should be no wimpy handshakes. It's the entire hand, web to web, shake lightly, and release. Always stand up for a handshake. If you're interviewing somebody and somebody enters the room and they want to shake your hand, don't just keep sitting down. Stand up and show respect. Never have your left hand in the trouser pocket when you shake hands. And make sure that you remember people's name when you talk to them. Mention them by name, Dr. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. And make sure that during that handshake you introduce yourself. Coming to your behavior during the interview, make sure you extend common courtesy. That means you should be nice to everybody, and I mean everybody. Even people who you don't even know. You're always smiling, you're always nice to people, you're always saying thank you. This is not just for the interview. This should be a behavior, actually. This should be a matter, like you do it on daily basis. Never badmouth a school, a program, subspecialty, or people you interacted with. This is actually a major mistake that I've seen many applicants do, and I'm talking specifically about the Syrian applicants. Do not, to show that your school is the best school, don't say bad things about other universities in the same country or even outside the country. Same thing when they ask you about why internal medicine. Don't start saying bad things about pediatrics or oh, I like medicine because it's so exciting. The other specialties are boring or something like that. That's not professional. That's gonna immediately, no matter how good you are, take you out of the list. Do not tell a lot of jokes or your sarcasm during your interview. And again, I've seen this happening. They think that you like somebody cracks a joke, then your interviewer cracks a joke, and you want to kind of be a little funny, and then you say something that does not sound right. Do not talk about controversial issues. Things like the situation, political situations, religious situations. If you can shy away from those things, especially, definitely do not start it yourself, and make sure if you're being asked about it, to get away from it if you can, in a polite way. You should be careful not to exaggerate. Give an honest and accurate responses. Now, that does not mean you should not sell yourself, but do not lie. Do not make things sound like, oh, I am from the best ever medical school in the Middle East, university. Even if it's true, this is called, when you say the best, the biggest program, the best school, etc. Those actually things do not sound good during an interview. Make sure actually, and this might relate to some of you, but take responsibility for your behavior, and this includes successes and failures. And I'm talking specifically about failures. If you flunked the CS, if you flunked the step 1, step 2, if your scores are bad during your transcript shows that you scored bad during your medical school, those are failures. You have to admit that, and you have to find a way to express your identification of the failure and what did you do to overcome it. You need to show that you are a responsible person. Responsible means professional. And please, if a beverage is offered during the interview, do you want to drink coffee? Or please don't try to decline it politely. Some people, most of the people, I think by common sense, they are going to know that this is just, this is just to tell me, they are just being nice to me. But do not start drinking coffee while you're interviewing, or like, grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Leave everything outside. When you're interviewing, you're interviewing. You're focusing on what's happening in the discussion. Now, I want to give some key points about respect. It's a key word during interview. Be nice and respectful, again, to everybody. Thank all the members, the staff who took the time to talk to you during your interview. Please make sure you don't chew gum. This is a common mistake, especially with the lady doctors. They come in, they forgot that actually they should throw the chewing gum is a sign of disrespect. A very, very common mistake, especially in the past few years, is turn off your cell phone. Please, there's nothing more important than the interview at that point. Don't show that you're a busy guy or somebody who's very popular and people like to, and you keep your cell phone off because there are so many other things outside there that is going to be destroyed if you don't interview. That people know that the priority, people look at it as your priority, your memento now is that interview, and nothing should distract you. This is called prioritization. So turn it off. Now, if you're very unfortunate, if you're really unfortunate, you forgot to turn off your cell phone and it rings, make sure that you immediately go to the turn off button, turn it off. Don't look who is calling or turn it on and say, oh, let me call you back in a couple of seconds. I'm in a very serious meeting here. These are all mistakes. Turn it off immediately and prepare by heart a sentence that forms something to apologize. Examples are, I'm so sorry. I was so caught up in preparing for my interview that I forgot to turn it off. Even if you do that, actually, unfortunately, for many people, if it does happen, you will have to be really the absolute top candidate for the position in order for them to actually still consider you. When you sit down, don't cross your legs. I know that some people actually do it, and I know that they think they look okay, and some of them actually do look okay, and they can behave okay. But in general, in our culture, like as Syrian people, when we cross legs, we don't know how to behave when we do that. I mean, we either look overconfident or we look completely ridiculous. So my recommendation is put your legs on the floor and look them directly in the eyes and shrug up your shoulders. Do not place personal items on the table. No cell phones, no iPhones, no handbags, no briefcases, no water bottles. I hope actually you are not entering the room with a water bottle in your hand or a coffee cup, but it did happen. But if you by mistake go in, you're so anxious and you forgot to put these things out, put them down, put them like next to the chair or a chair next to you. Don't put them on a table if you're sitting on the table with somebody. Next is going to be about communication. Avoid using first names, even if you know the other attending or interviewer very well. Call them Dr. So-and-so last name. Never introduce yourself by your title. Don't say Professor. I know none of you is going to do that, but don't say I am Professor so-and-so, or I am Assistant Professor so-and-so, or I'm the chairman of whatever. And don't say, even like, you give your first name, your last name. You don't even have to just say Dr. Tareq Alyousef, for example. I am Tareq Alyousef. Nice to meet you, etc., etc. Practice introducing yourself and have a 1-minute commercial while this is during shaking your hands, about yourself, about your goals, if you can do it very, very shortly in a couple of seconds. Tareq Alyousef, for example, from University of Damascus, Syria, something like that. Make sure you speak clearly and firmly. This is very important. Don't mumble. Don't make your voice quite like reasonably loud. Speak in slow language. Let them understand what you're trying to say. Follow the interviewer's lead on the topic. If he's talking about something, please don't start thinking and jumping from one topic to the other. Focus on what the interviewer is talking about and try to go around it. If you feel uncomfortable discussing something that he is discussing or she is discussing, try to have a smooth transition to something else. Make sure that you listen carefully and learn from what they're telling you. Do not, while he's or she's saying something to you or talking about something, you're thinking about, oh, what is she gonna ask me? What is he gonna say about this? What should I ask him? Focus on what these are things that you should have addressed before the interview. When you're interviewing, actually, you are listening and you're trying to engage. Do not initiate a discussion about salary or benefits. And again, I don't think that's a common mistake among the Syrian people. So thankfully, it's hopefully not going to be a big deal. Never turn down an offered business card. Take the time to look at it when you receive it. Now, you might sound like, who's going to do that? Well, it's done. It's done not rarely. That somebody tells you, oh, do you have my card? And he's trying to pull out something, and then somebody's answer is, oh, yeah, I got it outside. They gave us all your contact information and everything. Thank you, or something like that. No, take the card and actually make an effort to look at it, and at least to remember his name or know how to spell, to how his actually name looks exactly like, or and call her or him by name. Make sure you thank the interviewer on the way out, and then make sure that you send a handwritten follow-up thank you note. Now, now you're going to hear different people telling you different things probably about this, but if you want my recommendation as a follow-up on an interview from a professional perspective, handwritten notes, like well handwritten notes. I'm not talking about somebody who does not even know how to, like, bad handwriting and stuff. Ask somebody to make a handwritten note for you, because it reflects actually that a lot of professionalism is being reflected by that, instead of like something that is already generated by email, or you can copy and paste and just send it to everybody. People really appreciate actually if you take the time to handwrite something in a good way. That note should go to every single person who interviewed you. Program director, attendings, etc., etc. Now, a few things about what to dress, and I'm thankfully, I mean, it's not a big of an issue for the Syrian people. Usually, Syrian people are really good dressers. The two notes that I want to attract your attention to here is, if there is a dinner, for example, for the night before the interview, and that happens especially in the big programs, and you don't know what to wear, or they did not mention what to wear, make sure you ask actually. And most of the people are gonna answer that it's gonna be a casual meeting, like you can dress casual or whatever. But if they don't, actually do ask about what is this a formal or an informal meeting, and they will tell you, should I dress casual or etc. That's not a problem. Actually, that's considered professional. For women, I've put pictures because I don't want to go over all these things that are written here, but I've taken pictures of two widely available and acceptable ways of dressing for women. Here with a skirt or with trousers. Recently, actually, this is evidence-based. 90% or more of the interviewers agree that trousers are becoming a popular way actually of interviewing, and it's being accepted. It's not a problem. The color is preferred to be actually either dark blue or navy or like dark gray or probably black. I mean, dark colors is preferred. The shoes, please make sure that you have a formal way, a formal type of shoes, and make sure that you don't have much accessories, like small rings or one or two things in the hand. That's okay. A necklace is okay, but don't be crowded. Makeup should be very, very actually as quiet as possible. It should not be very, very like busy face. For men, the same thing applies, the same kind of rules. It's preferred that it's either blue or gray or black. Obviously, a necktie is key, and it makes sure that it suits your suit. Make sure actually you take somebody's opinion before. How do I look? Is that good enough? Do you think I should change something? Make sure that you have a good haircut, a good shave. If you have a beard, make sure that it looks really good and you've taken care of it. Things that you should not wear is all what is being shown in the pictures. No long nails, nothing like party kind of shoes. For us, piercing and tattoos are not of a big deal, but if you do have any of those, you should not show when you go for a professional interview. I'm going to stop here actually, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
الله يعطيك العافية دكتور طارق. Very impressive and very nice information actually. يسلم ايديك. بالنسبة للأسئلة خلينا نبدأ بالأسئلة. بدي هلا راح افتح المايك بالنسبة ل ديترويت. عم تسمعنا دكتور عمار؟
We're good now. Can you hear us?
Yeah. عم بسمعكم. دكتور طارق معنا أنت؟
أنا عم بسمع.
طيب هلا بدنا نبدأ بالأسئلة بس مشان نكون شوي منظمين. أول شيء في صدى عم بيكون من عندكم من جهاد، في عندكم صدى عم يوصلني. ممكن تستخدموا ما بعرف يا اما سماعات يا اما شيء.
تمام.
طيب اول شيء بدنا نبدا بالاسئله، فخلينا نبدا من اذا بدكم راح ابدا بالاسئله المكتوبه عندي. راح ابدا بكم سؤال مكتوب عندي اول شيء، وبتمنى انه من شيكاغو وديترويت وكليفلاند وهيوستن يجمعوا الاسئله كلياتها مع بعض او يكتبوها على ورقه وبيبعثوا لي اياها كمسج، او اذا بدهم جاهزين بيحكوها بيحكوا كل الاسئله تبعهم مع بعض. خلينا نبلش بالاسئله المكتوبه. بس قبل ما نبلش بالاسئله المكتوبه كان في عندي في نقطتين صراحه خطرت ببالي للدكتور طارق. The first one is what do you think about someone who doesn't shake hands with women, like, or the opposite, like a woman who doesn't want to shake hands with men? What do you think that the most appropriate action that they should do?
Great question. I was planning to talk about this and then I changed my mind. I was like, I'm not going to confuse people. But here's my take on it. If you really have a problem with it, and actually probably a good amount of us do have probably some religious beliefs and stuff, I have two suggestions that I found. There's no concrete answer to this. People might get offended if you that's a fact, unfortunately, because the culture here is all about handshaking and good eye contact and sometimes even hugging and kissing. It's going to be a little tricky. There's no hard science behind this, but I have two suggestions that you can think of and apply depending on what you believe helps your situation. Number one is the traditional way of people saying, I'm sorry for religious backgrounds. You form something to tell people frankly and openly that I do have some religious issues with handshaking from like a different gender. I apologize for any inconvenience. and that's not a problem. But again, you have to form it. You have to form it in your the day before. Make up your mind about what I'm going to be saying in probably one and a half sentence about this. There's no problem with saying that this is based on a religious background. Just say religious, and don't go into the details of it, because this actually, religious does not mean only Muslims. My understanding is some actually of the, for example, Catholic, Christians, or even Jewish, they do have the same issue, and it's very common actually for people apparently to say that this is I don't shake hands with the different gender. The second suggestion, which I find more probably appropriate for people who really get shy when this happens, is this is something that one of my people here suggested to me, and I found it actually quite interesting. You send an email the night before saying that you form something very polite, 2 lines, to the coordinator that says that for religious like background or whatever, and I don't want people to feel offended if I cannot shake their hands. I think that is probably what I would do if I have to do this.
الله يعطيك العافية. جواب مقنع. طيب, one more thing about the dress. هلا, you didn't talk about females who wear hijab. I know that there is no research about it, but maybe in your experience, do you think that they should wear hijab that's light color, like white, or it should be dark color?
In general, actually, it should suit whatever you're wearing as a dress. The recommendation is for black suits. So if the hijab if it suits hey, this is what matters. I don't think whether it's black or white is going to make a lot of difference. In general, if you were going to put everything together, I think the women that I've seen actually with hijab are mostly they use white colors, and I find it very acceptable.
طيب, الله يعطيك العافية. Let's start with Jihad with Detroit. عندك أسئلة جهاد؟ يا ريت someone who speaks the question clearly, وبعدين I will direct the question إما لدكتور طارق أو لدكتور عمار. ما عم نسمع. ألو؟ ما عم نسمع شيء أبدا.
Can you hear us, Muhammad?
هلا عم بسمع مزبوط. ايه.
Okay, Azizi, I just want to make a quick comment about the Quran. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this subject as well. One of the problems with handshaking, for me as a program director, as a physician, or as a patient, is how are you going to deal with the patients when they come to your room and examine them? For our sisters, my wife doesn't shake hands, right? And I say, okay, so she's a psychologist, she doesn't need to shake hands with me. We have hands on all the time. How are you going to justify that your program director saying, well, I don't shake hands? Be ready for the answer. Because you will be asked, if you're not going to shake hands with me, what you're going to do with these patients you're going to be touching, right? You're not going to say, oh, I'm not going to touch a patient. So for the sisters, please make sure you have an answer to that. Or the same thing for the gentleman who's not going to shake hands with you. It's not the end of the world. You're going to be touching patients all the time. What's the context of this handshake with regard, within the big picture of things?
عفوا دكتور عمار، أنا آسف المقاطعة، بس ما عم نسمعك صراحة، الصوت كتير بعيد. أنا مشان ما تعيد كل الحكي مرة ثانية، عفوا في كتير صدى عم بيكون من عندكم جهاد. عفوا جهاد، أنا عملت لكم ميوت، في عندكم كتير صدى عم بيكون، ما عم بيكون في سهولة بالتواصل معكم بهالموضوع. بس مشان عيد اللي قاله الدكتور عمار، الدكتور عمار عم بيقول إنه إذا في شخص مثلا عنده مشكلة إنه to shake hands with someone with in the interview day، فالفكرة إنه هو كprogram director he's gonna think إنه okay, if this person is not gonna shake hands with the other gender, then how is it possible that this person will examine patients and touch patients? So you have to prepare an answer for that. because they may ask you because they have a concern. What if you come and you say, you know what, I'm not going to touch the other gender, and then it's going to be a problem. So you have to prepare an answer for that, or it's not like just a short answer. You have to think about what other questions that may come after saying that I can't shake hands with you or something like that. So it's gonna be just more work for you. Um, عفوا دكتور عمار, I'm sorry for muting you, but I'm hearing an echo from you guys, and I think this is going to be an issue.
Only when you talk. So I have another question right now. Dr. Ammar said something about the new program and the stability of them. Can we have some advice regarding that?
Okay, so what I meant is that currently there's actually could look at the history of the different programs.
عفوا, we can't hear Dr. Ammar clearly. We were able to hear the question right, but Dr. Ammar's voice is not clear. I'm sorry. Hello? طيب أنا آسف, ما عم نسمع صوت الدكتور عمار بشكل منيح. راح خليني أخذ أنا آسف يعني للمقاطعة دكتور عمار, بس ما عندي صوت واضح. جهاد, في عندكم ألو جهاد؟ ألو جهاد؟ إيه جهاد, عم بسمعك يا جهاد, أنا عم بسمعك منيح. نو بس عفوا, أنا عم بسمعك منيح جهاد لما أنت عم تحكي, بس لما الدكتور عمار عم يحكي عم يكون الصوت كتير بعيد وما عم نسمع منيح. فإذا هو بيقعد جنب المايك أو إنه بتبدلوا الأماكن أو هيك شيء يعني مشان
اوكي عزيزي, can you هلا هيك hear me؟
هلا ممتاز كتير, هلا ممتاز كتير وما في صدى. ايه
okay, excellent. Now we turned off the screen.
تمام.
Answer يعني just quickly إنه هلا ال ACGME when they do go out of programs periodically they put them under either a condition or an audit or something like that. So you may get for a program, for example, they may be only certified for the next 3 years or 2 years, or sometimes there are certain conditions being put on the program at a time. And also the American Osteopathic Association joining with the ACGME, there'll be new programs coming up. So my advice to the applicants is look for a program that's been stable, that they're not on probation by the ACGME, that the program will be there for the next 2, 3, 4 years until they are done with their program. If you can. If you can, then that's a different story. But do your homework, because some of these programs, like I said, are on probation, or maybe some of their fellowships may be on probation. Just be aware of these things. Do your homework beforehand. You could find this stuff on the ACGME website.
طيب ممتاز. في أسئلة تانية جهاد عندكم
So when asked, do you have any questions? Is it better to respond with one even? If you don't have, even if you don't have any question, is it better to answer with any question? Or what? Yeah, this is the
لا أعطوني كل الأسئلة اللي عندكم هلا بديترويت. Just give me all the questions you have together هلا, so I can move to Chicago, so I can move to other locations.
So next question, what happened? What papers should be brought to the interview?
تفضل دكتور عمار.
So the first question was, okay, so like I said, if you have no questions specifically, it's your time to talk about yourself. That means that you have extra couple of minutes to describe your strengths and weaknesses, or to talk about things that you're proud of. You could very well say, I don't have more questions, but I just want to make sure that and then you talk about something that you're proud of, okay? Like I said, the time during the interview is quite valuable. Don't waste it. Don't say I didn't have any questions and goodbye. You may very well have no question, but it's still your time now to say things that you wanted to describe that you are not able to do during the interview process. And then the other question was about papers to bring into your interview. Always, always, always bring in copies of your letter of references as well as your resume. And if you have done any research, copies of your research, transcripts of your publications, all the time. Bring in a list of the people that you have worked with, be prepared. And the reason being, as an interviewer, and this happened to me just last week, I was interviewing somebody this past Monday, and I didn't have their resume in front of me. And I wasn't going to look for it, right? So I asked them simply, I said, do you have a copy of your resume? And sure enough, the individual had presented to me right away. So these are things that you have, all your credentials, you have to have, they do have a copy of it. Your licensure, what have you, they have. But I, as an interviewer, I may not have your resume, I may not have your personal statement, and I may not have your copies of your research that you've done or published. So have these handy.
Excellent.
Okay, I have a conflict with interview, religion, Middle East.
الله يعطيك العافية.
Dr. Tariq, you're going to answer this question.
طيب.
Okay, so we have a question about conflict with interview, religion, Middle East, instability, same-sex marriage, abortion, races, food, beer.
Wow. These are like 100 questions, not one only. تفضل دكتور طارق.
Like if you don't like if you have some conflicts with some of these issues, how do you answer the question here? Like in general, about Syria, for example, or about like religion, or about wherever. Is there any rule about that?
Yeah, my general rule is be very generic, very, very generic. Address it as if you do not, you're not judging, you're not taking a position. Address it as from a humanity level, like on the humanity level. It depends on the question. But you should be prepared. You're going to be asked, actually. Probably each one of you is going to be asked in one program or more about what is happening in Syria, and you should be prepared. My recommendation is the answer that you prepare, which you should very well prepare, actually. It needs to be written and practiced the day before interview. It should be very, very generic. You should not take a stand. You should not make a position. Don't take a position. Be very generic and address what everybody agrees on, that this is a humanitarian problem now.
طيب سؤال ثاني من عندكم جهاد.
Ammar, can I add just something as well?
Yeah.
When I was talking about program directors, and remember I said program directors are looking for a certain type of people. The culture in the US is very tolerant, and we all come with our own biases. You're not going to be practicing medicine in Syria. Keep that in mind. You're going to be practicing here. So as you transition yourself into being a member of this society here in the US, you want to start thinking about what is valuable in the US. Tolerance is on top of the list. And when you give your answer, make it just short. People are not going to quiz you really, are you for or against? You could certainly say, my background is such, but my patients come first. You're going to treat patients regardless of their orientation, their gender, their whatever it may be. Your goal is to take care of patients, right? And that's what program directors are going to look for. They do not want somebody who's hard-headed, who's already stubborn, who's already made up their mind about, well, I'm not going to do this, and this is against my religious belief. There's nothing wrong with it being against your religious belief, and you say, I'm not going to do it when it comes to abortion, for example, right? But you're not going to get that question. We want to hear from people that are actually tolerant to the diversity of this country. Keep that in mind. Thank you.
أي سؤال ثاني جهاد عندكم؟
Yep. So, what's the best question for the programs to ask the program about?
You mean like to the program director, ولا associate, ولا chief resident?
They ask you, do you have a question? What's the best question to ask them?
Yeah, well, it's very complicated because each one will have I would ask the program director something different from the questions I'm going to ask the chief resident, and it's going to be different to the person, to the resident, and it's going to be different to someone else who works in the hospital. So you need to ask questions to the right person, the right question to the right person. في Dr. Ammar, you want to say something about that? What's going to be the best question?
Right on the head. That these questions are not just to ask a question. You should have an idea.
عفوا ما في راح الصوت ما عم نسمع صوت ابدا.
الو. Can you hear me now?
ايه هلا عم اسمعك.
Okay. So I was saying that you hit it right on the head, that program directors or programs in general, they're not really looking for the kind of question that you ask. They want to see interest in their program. So each individual will get a different question just to show that you're actually interested and you want to know more about the program. But there's really nothing scripted. Often people say, what is the best question? What is the best answer? You know what? It depends on the circumstance that you're in at the time. But I agree with you.
طيب
Another question I do have here. What can I do or say if I forgot the name of the interviewer? Or what about if I couldn't pronounce it the right way?
دكتور طارق.
Well, I just don't mention the name. Yani, it's better. That's why I focused on if you can look at how that name is written. If you have a card, if you have something written on a paper, you can ask in between. If you know that you're going to interview, you can ask the coordinator sometimes. I'm sorry, how do you spell or how do you say Dr. This gentleman's name or my interviewer name or something like that. But if you cannot or you've completely forgot, then just don't say anything. Just don't say the name.
طيب جهاد, one more question من عندكم وننتقل لشيكاغو. تفضل.
Perfumes.
عفوا.
Can we put any perfumes?
طيب دكتور عمار.
So perfumes and cologne and what have you, it's again part of the professionalism. If you're going to put anything, make sure it's very, very light, barely noticeable. This is, again, you're going to work as a doctor. You're not going to a club or something. So my advice, if you're going to put any, make sure it's very, very light, preferably none. Assuming that you just came out of the shower, and that's another thing that you want to make sure that you're actually all showered and clean.
Yeah, أنا صراحة I just want to add something. I've seen it in many hospitals, especially in university hospitals. They have those signs that says that our classes or our rooms are odorless, like has no odor. يعني so الأفضل إنه الواحد ما بيحط أي شيء لأنه the concern is إنه some people they have allergy and many people in up north they have a lot of allergy. فبيعمل لهم مشاكل ف they are trying to avoid any problems for those people. And maybe for you, maybe you feel okay even if you put like tons of perfume and cologne, but maybe for other people, maybe it's going to be very annoying. And that's what Dr. Ammar was saying. It's about tolerance. It's about how to respect other people. So putting a perfume, wearing a perfume or a cologne is going to be a problem. طيب يعطيكم العافية. If you have any more questions بالنسبة لديترويت يعني عندكم دكتور عمار إن شاء الله he will answer all your questions during the day. I would like to move to Chicago. طيب عبد الرحمن عم تسمعني؟
أيوة محمد شادي معك.
أي شادي عفوا يلا تفضلوا بالأسئلة وإن شاء الله نسمع الإجابات من الدكتور عمار والدكتور طارق. تفضل.
طيب خير. طيب هلا أول سؤال هو على follow up letter. إنه should we send a generic follow up letter after the interview to all the interviewers or should we try to individualize it?
دكتور طارق.
والله أنا إذا بدكم رأيي الشخصي إنه أنا مو بس الفولو أب، أنا برأيي حتى الأسئلة تعقيبا على سؤال الأخ اللي سأل مين أو شو أحسن سؤال بنسأل البروجرام دايركتور. If you really want to يعني do a good match, try to personalize everything that you do. Meaning يعني وقت تسأل أسئلة ask a question because you want to know, more because you just want to ask a question. And when you ask the question to different program directors, you're asking each one of those, depending on what you read and what you know about the program, you ask them a specific question about their program. And the same thing applies to follow-ups. When you do your follow-ups, and that's why I said handwritten, when they feel, the more they feel that you made an effort to do this, the more that feeling is there, the more it's going to be actually, the outcome is going to hopefully be better. That means you are serious about what you're doing. You really want you're taking the time to do something with the program. So they take you more seriously when you do that. And I'm so much against actually a generic. It is very easy. It is very easy to do it, and actually you can kind of write something very vague and change minor things probably here and there, and then send it by email or by copy and paste to everybody. But that is going to put you with the 95% of the people who are going to be average follow-up and average communication skills. If you want to excel, if you want to do something different, and to be honest with you, as a Syrian, you really need to do something different because things are getting worse. The chances are just getting worse and worse one year after the other to get into the programs. So do whatever it takes and give it a really good shot.
الدكتور عمار في عندك شيء تضيفه؟
Yeah. So the purpose of the follow-up letter. So the purpose of the follow-up letter is actually more than one-fold. One, this is to thank him out of professionalism and courtesy. That's a given. Two, also to remind him of who you are. So remember, after the interview season is over, we don't remember who actually we interviewed. We had 30, 40, 50 applicants. So one way for you to highlight yourself after the interview is when you send the letter, you could certainly want you to say something to the effect that, and you and I talked about this, or thank you for letting me know about the bears, or something. In essence, something that will tease you out as a unique individual to remind me of who it was that actually I interviewed at the time. And I totally agree with it being handwritten. You do not want to do emails. Actually, my last slide is going to be on that particular topic because emails often go to the wrong hands. People don't read emails. Handwritten letter in good handwriting to remind the program director of who you are, what you are. There was something unique about you. And then you can certainly say, express, that's the third point actually of why you want to send the letter, is to express your interest in the program. So what attracted you? What have you learned from this whole interview for that day? You know what, I really learned something, some information that's new to me, that it was very enlightening. So that way the program director knows that it was fruitful for you, that you're still interested in the program, and it was personal. So when you send these letters that are personalized, it's really based on what you learn from each of the interviewers. Could be the secretary, could be the assistant, could be the chief president. Each person gets their own letter because hopefully you've learned something unique from each of these individuals. Thank you.
طيب دكتور شادي في أسئلة تانية؟
طيب في سؤال ثاني عن الفيزا. A lot of people have issues with the visas, or it's complicated. You have TPS or visa, visitor visa, all that. Should we ask the program director about all this, or who should we talk about? Or who should we talk to about this visa issues?
دكتور عمار. دكتور عمار. تفضل.
Yeah. So I think this is part of the homework that should have been done before you actually went for the interview. These questions should not come up at the interview at all. You could do it in a follow-up if you need to. But beforehand, you should know what the program is offering. Do they do the waivers? Do they not do the waivers, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm not very familiar with the actual visa process, but I'm telling you, this is probably the wrong time to bring it up. You could do that in a follow-up letter, or preferably get it from other people before the interview. There's some that should be already available to you beforehand.
طيب دكتور شادي سؤال ثاني.
The other question هو إذا أنت رايح تقابل ب program that is new, for example, and you're not sure about the stability and what they plan for the future, is this something you can talk about with the program director?
دكتور عمار.
Yes, certainly ask them about the last, ACGME, what they found, what do they see the program going in a non-accusatory manner. So in essence, you're hopeful that the program will flourish and do very well, and they will give you them more information based on that.
Yeah, I just want to add
be optimistic.
Yeah, I just exactly. I think it just happened to me one time. I did an interview, and the program actually just shut down other two residency programs. They shut down the family and the pediatrics residency programs, and they have only internal medicine left. So I was like, I'm applying to you guys. So how do you see the internal medicine residency program in this hospital? Do you think that this is gonna continue, or I should be worried if you guys are going to shut down in 2 years before I graduate, because it's going to be an issue. But this is definitely something that we should look up in the website, that ACGME usually they accredit those hospitals for 3 years, sometimes for 5 years, sometimes for 1 year. So if you see that the program has been accredited for 1 year, then you need to be worried, because 1 year is not enough to finish your residency. So if the university or program is accredited for 3 or 5 years, then you don't need to worry about it, because most likely they will not shut down unless there's huge financial problems. في أسئلة تانية دكتور شادي؟
Yeah, I have two other questions. واحد على again the appearance and what to wear, which I think is important. So the question in particular is about a tie, like how to choose a tie and things like that. I think Tareq has.
تفضل طارق.
يعني there are no clear-cut guidelines on how you choose your tie, but again, it should be something that fits your suit. And the other thing is most of the people consider اللي هي اللي احنا بنسميها الجرافات، يعني المخططة هيك تخطيطة خفيفة as probably a good one. المهم ما تكون معجوقة. يعني I think that's number one، إنه ما تكون معجوقة. number two ما يكون لونها فاقع. هي شغلات بتنطبق مو بس على الجرافة، على كل شيء، عند الزلم وعند النسوان. يعني ما يكون شيء معجوق، ما يكون شيء فاقع. هدول الشغلتين لازم تتجنبوا.
شو السؤال الثاني دكتور شادي؟
السؤال الثاني هو إذا عندك gaps after you finish your medical school, like if it's a non-clinical gaps, like how should you explain about it, or how if they ask you gaps,
دكتور عمار.
I go back to what Akhuna Tareq had said about professionalism. You need to be honest in your answers. You need to be yourself and you need to be honest. Whatever gap it was, you just have to explain it the way it was. The key for the program directors is, was it fruitful or not? Was it wasted time or not? So let's say you've taken 2 years off, from studying. What did you do with that time? Maybe you need to support a family. Maybe you needed to volunteer somewhere. That's the key thing for them. But make sure that you're telling the truth throughout this process. I can't tell you how important that is. If there's something that's going to do you in, if you don't tell the truth and they find out about it, you're done. You're done. Actually, you're not going to be able to apply to other programs because that will go into your ears. And program directors do send comments about some of these things that people usually say in the program. So I would say, like Dr. Tareq said, be honest, be truthful, and be professional.
طيب الله يعطيكم العافية. إذا عندكم واحد تاني في عنا وقت، بس تفضلوا.
Another quick question. Is that Dr. Ammar mentioned in his presentation that to ask your mentor or whoever wrote your letter of recommendations to contact the program that you're interested in the most. So what is the good time to ask somebody to call in and put in a word with the program for you? Before interview, after interview, before ranking, after interview, before ranking?
So you want to do it actually both. You want to do it before the interview if you can. And this, again, it's an insider. We're not talking about somebody who's not familiar with the program. But if your letter was written by somebody in the same program, let's say it's another attending in the program, and you're going for the interview next week, then you want that person actually to call the program director the day before to remind them, oh, by the way, my buddy is coming to see you tomorrow for an interview, etc., etc. The second call that will need to come out is before the ranking. In essence, you've already interviewed, you've done well, you send that thank you letter, etc. And then before they rank, before they actually meet, a second call would be useful as well to say, oh, how did our guy do? Was he good? Was he, is he going to be ranked? Something like that. So again, this is all personal relationships between the attendings or your reference person and the program director. But the timing will be one before, hopefully the day before, so they would remember. And the other one is before the ranking if possible.
ممتاز. طيب خلينا ننتقل لكليفلاند كويستشنز. يعطيكم العافية دكتور شادي. بالنسبة لكليفلاند questions طبعا they have a lot of them. They have 13 questions. Let's go through them very quickly. يعني let's go through as many as we can. First question is how to answer, are you going back to Syria after you are done? دكتور عمار.
Be truthful. If you're going back, tell them I'm planning on going back. If you're not planning on going back, tell them I'm not planning on going back. People will sense from your answer, and I'll tell you this, like I said, been doing this for over 10 years. Interviewers, experienced interviewers could tell when you're telling the truth and when you're not. Okay, so my advice is, if you think that you're going to go back, let them know I'm planning on going back once I finish my residency. If you're not planning on going back, let them know I'm not planning on going back. You know, I want to stay here, and they, you know, may open another discussion for you to discuss with the program director. But be honest in your answer. And if you don't know, just tell them, you know what, I'm really not sure. With the turmoil that's going on, I may or may not be able to go back. That'd be my answer.
One more question. It says, how to answer questions about family stability considering the Syrian situation. دكتور طارق, في عندك أي input about this?
Family stability? I don't know actually what that means.
I'm not sure what does that mean too. طيب, let's go to the next question. That's very interesting. How much should we know about the interviewer, دكتور طارق?
Well, as much as you can. The reason is it helps you to, at the end of the day, interview, like, you know, a successful interview means a successful communication. And if you think about it in basic kind of way, you enjoy and you like somebody who you have more common things with. If you know something about this guy, if you share some hobbies with him, if you know that the program director likes 1, 2, 3, 4, if you know that the chief resident likes his interest in research is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you share some of those, and you can kind of, then you have something to talk about instead of going the route of trying to squeeze words out of him, or he squeezes words out of you. So the more you know about the interviewer, the more it is. Interview, I don't think, to be honest with you, in general, we don't take it as serious as we should, as the Syrian applicants in general. Some people read for 3 or 4 days, day and night actually. I know friends who prepare for 3 or 4 days before every interview about every single potential interviewer. And like the projects that are happening, and what's the focus of the research, and what the residents did, and where do most of the residents, they do have a lot of things. And believe it or not, the more you know, actually, the more questions you have, because now you have, like, it opens your mind on some other stuff.
طيب, another question. It says, can we ask the interviewer about their own specialty? I'll take care of that. Usually they will give you the names and the specialties or the titles of every interviewer on the first thing in the morning, or at least they will give you that through the itinerary of your interview. So you should have this information already available. So this is nothing you ask about in the interview. You should already know the interviewer specialty, the interviewer name, the interviewer title in the hospital. Another question: what is a good question to show the interest in continuing in academia? دكتور طارق.
Well, I think there are a lot of questions. I think Dr. Ammar, Dr. Hatahet is going to be of more help. But in general, when I used to interview patients, you can tell who's really interested in academia. If your questions are mostly focused on, let's say, research, teaching, what are the chances that people who apply to fellowships after residency get their fellowships? These kind of questions immediately actually show that this person is more interested in academic careers, probably. Specifically, like when you start asking about research / basic research / opportunities of publishing and support, like how much support do I get from the program to go and present posters and etc. I think all these questions reflect on tendency towards an academic career. But I think if Dr. Hatahet probably is going to be a better help than me.
I think the way I would approach it, I would not approach it as a question. Yeah, and again, be sincere. You've already done your homework about the program. You've already looked up what kind of publications they have. It would be more of along the lines as follows. When I get accepted, will I be able to do my research in area B or C? In essence, you're doing it more in the affirmative as opposed to you, oh, what do you guys have? Or is there opportunity? You should have already known about the opportunities that are already available at that particular institution. But again, what I said is, what do you bring to the table? So that's what you're going to highlight. I've heard that you guys are interested or you have published in this area and so forth, and I would like to present or I would like to do more research in this kind of endeavor. So what would I be able to do then? As opposed to you saying, what do you guys have? I think you should have it more in the affirmative, saying, when I get accepted, I would be able to do A, B, or C, or I'm interested in doing A, B, or C, and I would like to do more. But part of your homework, whatever that, again, you have to be sincere. If you're not interested in research, we're going to know. But if you're interested in that research in academia, you already looked up who's doing what at that particular institution. You already know that Dr. Jones have already published about, lung cancer and markers. And if that's your interest, then you'd say, I would like to work with Dr. So-and-so because that's my interest. But that should be also all in the preparation beforehand as well.
طيب في سؤال تاني عم بيقول how to escape away from a question I don't have answer to. صراحة usually if that happens, then just be honest and just say I don't know, or I don't have an answer for this yet, or it depends on the question. If it's an important question and you don't have answer for it, then it's a problem. And but if it's a rare question and you really don't know the answer, I mean, I'm assuming if you're talking about a medical question, like if they ask you what's the mechanism of this medication, because sometimes some programs they do ask these questions and you don't know the answer, then you just need to say I don't know. Don't say a wrong answer. Don't say that, oh yeah, the mechanism is this, and then it's something else or it's something wrong. If you don't know, just say I don't know or I don't have an answer. Just as they said, just be honest. One more question. I don't know, but Dr. Ammar, what is the best way to answer what are you bringing to the table?
I'm now sounding more like a broken record here. Be honest. You know your strength, right? We all are individuals that have unique kind of characteristics. What is that so unique about you that you want to bring into the table? So be honest. Look at yourself first. Know yourself first. Actually, this was on one of my slides as well. Know yourself before somebody else is going to look at you and get to know you. So I would say, what do you bring into the table? You ask yourself the question. As a program director, what do you bring to the table? Some people bring in their enthusiasm. Some people bring in their friendship. Some people bring in their big smile. Some their interest in research. And hopefully what you bring in matches with the program needs. But you need to know, look inside you and find out what your strength you have and how the program will benefit from you.
طيب one more question.
عفوا
دكتور عمار آسف تفضل.
No, I said just don't lie about it. Be honest.
One more question. I think it's an important question. If I have physical disability, should I bring it up during the interview? Dr. Ammar?
I think so. I mean, if they don't ask you, you think it's going to impair your ability to perform medicine or no? All programs here have accommodations for people with disabilities as part of the Anti-Discrimination Act for disabilities. So that's already in place. So it depends on what kind of disability is going to be. If it is a learning disability, then you have a problem. But that usually, again, appears beforehand, and people will find out fairly quickly if you have a disability or not. Remember, you're going to be working with these people. You're going to be living in the hospital for the first year. Literally, you're going to be living there. So people will know. You're not going to be able to hide it. If the question comes up, I think you should answer it truthfully. If it doesn't come up and it's not going to impede your ability to do your medicine and taking care of patients, then I don't know the answer. Akhtari, I don't know if you have answers or...
No, I agree. But I have to bring, it depends on your disability. مرة تانية, I agree 100% with Dr. Hatahet. If you, for example, if your hearing is not great, it's much better to let the interviewer know that I don't hear very well. I'm sorry if I cannot hear your question, or I don't. إلى آخره. يعني sometimes it even helps you to look professional and answer appropriately. If it's gonna even affect your interview, if it's not gonna affect anything, if it's not gonna matter, then I would not bring it to the table.
طيب one more question عم بيقول is it okay to answer an invitation request after 12 hours؟ أنا صراحة بقول مثل ما قال الدكتور طارق إنه you should answer any invitation as soon as possible. The best answer is going to be within an hour. صراحة more than an hour there is a higher chance that the spot will be taken to somewhere else, because what happens that many programs they have they send maybe they have like 200 spots for interviews, but they send the invitations to 300. So what happens that the first 200 who's going to reply to that email and to that invitation, they will get the invitation and they will get the interview. The other 100, they will stay on the waiting list. Yes, it doesn't happen with all programs, but there are many programs who are doing this because they don't have time to send the interviews every day. They will just send it to everybody. So whoever responds first will get the interview. So respond as soon as possible. And when you respond, make sure you respond with the correct days, like choose the date that you want, but within 1 hour. 12 hours, I think it's too long. I know that Dr. Tariq, he said within 24 hours, but that's for common emails, that's for just any regular email, but not for invitation. I would recommend that you respond as soon as possible. And make sure you get a confirmation email to confirm that you got the interview. Otherwise, if you don't have a confirmation email, then you don't have an interview, basically. كمان بدنا ننتقل هلا لهيوستن. الله يعطيكم العافية. بالنسبة لكليفلاند, there are actually many questions, but I didn't go through all of them. Some of them were not clear. That's why I did not ask them. But let's go to Houston. طيب راتب أنت معي؟ راتب أنا ما عم بسمعك. إيه عم بسمعك هلا. ممتاز. بس في صدى عم بيكون.
طب هلا كيف؟
هلا ممتاز كتير. إيه اتفضل، إذا في عندكم أسئلة يا ريت تعطونا إياها ونوجه الأسئلة
طب أوكي. محمد عندي 12 سؤال، أحاول بلش بالبرايورتيز يمكن. ممكن تعطونا examples عن ال weaknesses, appropriate weaknesses and how to respond to it.
دكتور عمار.
Okay. That question, like I said, is going to come often, and you know yourself, you could easily describe your weaknesses, whether you're interested. So one of the key things for the interviewer is, one, for you to realize that you have weaknesses. No one of us is actually perfect. You're coming in as an intern. There are a lot of weaknesses that you have, so you need to be able to describe at least one or two. What's important about these weaknesses, that one, they are not a major detriment to your ability to perform medicine. Okay, and then two, that you're going to be able to learn from it and improve on it, whatever it may be. So you could, insomnia. I don't sleep very well. However, I have a plan to fix this now that I have changed my time here in the United States. You could think about other things that you may have. Okay, so low scores are, okay. So my weakness is a low score. They're not interested in that kind of weakness. They're interested in more your personal weakness. Things that you know that you're deficient in. Okay, and what they're more interested in really is how you're going to fix it, that I have a way of fixing it. Like I said, I can't really move quickly during codes, let's say, right? Then I'm going to be able to then at least improve on my ability to move quickly. I have a plan to fix it. It could be in recollection. So I can't remember directly when people talk, but I always take notes to make me remember things. Things that are not necessarily detriment to your ability to perform medicine, but things that you could also, that you have to fix anyway. But like I said, look inside yourself. You know your weaknesses more than anybody else. You know what you're falling short on, and you have to have a plan to fix it. But these would be probably the examples of, when you ask that question, each one of us could identify one and work on it.
طيب راتب في أسئلة تانية؟ إيه تفضل.
سمعني؟ Okay,
إيه.
yeah. Next question. سمعني؟ Okay. Next question. سمعني؟ Okay. Next question. سمعني؟ Okay.
عفوا راتب، عم بيكون في صدى أكثر من صوت عم يوصلني، ما بقدر ما عم نسمع منيح. يا ريت تكتبوا الأسئلة تبعكم تبعتوا لنا إياها مشان نكسب وقت، لأنه راح يخلص وقت الأسئلة يعني قريبا، فاكتبوا لنا إياها. راح أخذ كم سؤال أنا من الأسئلة اللي موجودة عندي بالquestion list، وبنرجع لكم. يا ريت تكتبوا لنا إياها وتبعتوا لنا إياها على الفون. طيب في سؤال كتير مهم أنا حسيته صراحة، وصلني هون، إنه how to overcome stress and fear of failing during interview. شو رأيك دكتور طارق؟
والله يعني this is difficult يعني there are some stuff يعني إنه أنا برأيي إنه حتى إذا اضطريت بصراحة تاخذ medications like beta blockers and stuff you should يعني even if it's that bad، لأنه stress is going to be your enemy during the interview. If you're somebody who stresses out very easy, it's gonna be very easy for the interviewer to figure out, and when that happens, it's يعني it's not gonna be easy to fix. But there are some things actually that they say in body language that can help you. يعني put yourself in a kind of a reasonably comfortable position. Take some nice deep breaths. شو اسمه nice deep breaths before you go into the room. Try to speak, even if you feel the urge to talk fast. Try to actually talk as slow as possible. Talk and listen to yourself talking, kind of. I think the most important part is if you do a lot of practicing, your stress is going to be much less. Even if you're somebody who يعني who's emotionally very stressed out and everything, but practicing the day before gives you a lot of confidence. Not just the day, actually. Make as much as practicing as possible. يعني اليوم you're going to have an excellent, I think, opportunity to say whatever you want and make sure you address the concerns, the questions that come to your mind and you feel like I cannot find answers to. Being prepared is going to push you very high. So practice and practice.
طيب يعطيك العافية. خلينا نرجع لهيوستن. تفضل راتب.
محمد سمعني ما هي؟
سمعانك مزبوط. تمام تفضل.
أعطينا. تبعتها افضل تبعتها بلانك ليتر وانت تكتبها بايدك، ولا تبعت كارد ثانك يو كارد وبعدين تكتب بالكارد whatever you want to write؟
يعني اوريدي نحن حكينا عن هذا الموضوع، ما بعرف اذا في شيء اضافه، يعني نحن اوريدي حكينا عن هذا الموضوع. تفضل دكتور طارق، في شيء بدك تضيفه؟
I think is that a really huge difference?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it makes a big difference. More professional, يعني professional way of doing it. Common practice is you just write a reasonable letter. Okay. Some people do send some cards على Christmas أو إلى آخره يعني بالأعياد الهي. That's a different story.
تفضل.
Next question is if the program is known to have some defects, or let's say major defects, and you already have an interview there, do you, and they ask you why you're coming and interviewing with us, do you talk about the defects they have? Do you try to avoid the defects? Do you try to, mention it in a different way, try to make it not a really huge defect? How do you deal with that part?
دكتور عمار.
They know that you know about these defects, right? So they're looking for someone who's going to come in as an asset, as a team player. So you're going to have to address it during the interview. You're going to say, what you could do to help alleviate these defects. How are you going to be a positive rather than a negative? One of the worst things you could do when you go for an interview is being pessimistic, right? So when you go in, you're thinking these defects will be fixed. I hope they will be fixed. I'm going to be able to help you guys in fixing it in one way or another. But you have to talk about it. And if they don't talk about it, you should talk about it and you should bring it up. It's not like it's unknown. But you, in the same talking, that's when you get a chance actually to say, and by the way, I could help with this, right? One of the common ones, low board scores. Well, you know what? My board scores are very good. I'm going to excel. I'm going to bring up the average score board, for, the average score for our institution, let's say. And you start talking as if you're actually a member of that team to help with solving these problems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What if the defect was that the program is known to be malignant program? We usually say malignant for, not very social, not very likable program. How do you deal with that part?
Is that for me?
تفضل دكتور عمار.
So, like I said earlier in my presentation, it's a 3 years period that you're going to have to be in a program. It's really up to your tolerance level, if you want to be willing to put up with it or not. Just like Askariya, they go by, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a stepping stone for you. If you're not going to be there for the rest of your life, then that be it. However, having said that, I'll tell you, there are a lot of the programs that are not very friendly to the foreign graduates, and after they get to know you and they see you and they work with you, they'll be your best allies, they'll be your best friends. So don't judge the program based on what they've done before. You have to prove yourself, just like everywhere else. And I'll tell you something, I did my residency at St. Joe's many, many years ago. And the program had a very good, at the time when I actually joined, they had a very good appreciation of the Syrian residents at the time. Then we had a couple of bad apples, like was alluded before by Dr. Alyousef, about bad apples in that area, in that program. And guess what? For years, they did not take any Syrian applicants thereafter. Mm-hmm. And then they changed again because some newer applicants came about. They were doing very well, and they changed their approach and their view of the Syrian applicants. So you make a difference. If it's friendly or not a friendly program, you still go and apply, and you still go and show yourself. And you know what? It's only 3 years. At the end of the day, doesn't work out, doesn't work out. But it's really your perception, your personality that makes it into a good, pleasant experience or not them. Because you could go into a very good program and they could still really treat you bad.
Okay.
طيب تفضل راتب.
In regards to the dinner before the interview, is it necessary to attend that dinner? And also, does it affect your chances if you do not attend? And what is the best excuse to give if you're not going to attend?
دكتور طارق.
Just be honest. Whatever it takes, it's not going to affect your chances as far as you're professional. You say, I am not coming because unfortunately I will be traveling or etc. I will be arriving late that night. I would have loved to be there if I arrived earlier, etc. But don't say I'm coming and don't show up. And don't say I'm not coming and then show up. Please just stick to whatever you say. Just be professional.
Okay, can we ask?
تفضل.
The question about tell me about yourself. Do you talk about your personal characteristics? You talk about your professional or academic achievements? Do you try to balance that out, 50-50%? And when you try to answer this question, how long or how much time you have to answer that question?
دكتور عمار.
So they already have your resume, right? They already have your CV. The reason for that specific question is we want to know who you are. Like I said, we have 100 applicants. I don't know, anybody from anybody. I need to know who you are. So in these few minutes, and they will be usually about 3 or 4 minutes, not a whole lot more than 3 or 4 minutes. I want to know what's so different about you than the next person. Not your scores, not your grades. I want to see the enthusiasm, and if you're going to do fellowship, like you said earlier, or like we talked about, doing research, if you're doing, clinical work that's not in your resume, things about your own personality that you have not put in on paper, because you can't put on paper, right? But that's really the intent of that question about tell me about yourself, not about which school that you went to. Don't waste time. During the interview, do not waste time. They already know which school you went to. They already know what scores you've gotten. They already know I struggled with part 1, but I did well with part 2. I think what you want to describe is yourself as a person. I'm the kind of person you're going to really enjoy working with. They don't know that. Who's going to tell them that? If you don't tell them, who's going to tell them that, right? So you want to tell them, I'm really good to work with. I'm hardworking and I show up early on time, etc. My friends describe me. Don't say, no, I'm very good. My friends describe me as A, B, or C. I'm enthusiastic. I'm very sincere. I'm very faithful to my cause. All these things that you could actually say about yourself. And if you're going to talk about your hobbies, what have you, again, look around. If the person is interested in sports, you could put that one in. If you're interested in family matters, you could put that in, and so forth. But that's really the intent of the question about, tell us about who you are, your relationships with others. People need to know, are you good to work with? So the answer would be not, but I'm very friendly. No, my friends describe me as friendly, or my friends like to be with me, etc., etc. I'm laid back, or maybe I'm tense sometimes, something to that effect. But that's what they want to know with that question, I think.
طيب في سؤال ثاني؟
Yes, please. In case, well, it's about pregnancy. So do you prefer to do you think it's better to do the interviews before or after delivery? And do you tell them about your family, like as far as for how many kids you have, or if you already have kids or not?
دكتور عمار.
Oh boy. So the pregnancy question is a little bit interesting. As a program director, you're looking for somebody who's, remember I said that we want people actually who are family oriented, who are committed to their family and their cause. They're not going to be moving, after 6 months or after a year. Pregnancy is a bit problematic. The program directors will not tell you it's a problem. However, they will probably less likely to take somebody who's going to take for maternity come July or August or September. So I don't know what the program directors would do. Like I said, you need to let them know, be honest with your answers, but it would be hard for a program director to take somebody who's going to take 3 months off right at the beginning of the residency. If you have kids, that's fine. That's not a problem. If you have 4 kids or 10 kids, all they need to know that you could balance your time. That's one of these things, again. You need to be able to show that you could balance your time, whether it's a hobby or family commitments. What if you have parents here in town and you have 4 kids and you need to drive them from point A to B or C? You're going to tell the program directors, you know what, I have a lot of commitment, but remember we talk about these weaknesses? I have a lot of other commitments. However, I'm very committed to this as my priority because I'm able to organize my time. And I have a plan and I have contingencies. So I have hired, let's say, Uber to get kids from point A to point B, and I have babysitters. And my husband is going to be there to support me when the kids are in school to be picked up. So you have these contingencies. I think the pregnancy itself maybe, like I don't know about program directors accepting people are going to be taken off for 3 months right off the bat. I mean, I think that's going to be a bit hard.
طيب خلينا ناخد سؤال أو سؤالين كمان من عندكم وبعدين بدنا نوقف لأنه صراحة طولنا كتير أو إنه بنعمل الأنسرز شورتر يعني بس تفضل خلينا ناخد سؤال أو سؤالين مشان نبلش بالماك انترفيوز وننهي الويبينار.
If you already done a specialty in Syria and now you're applying for a different one here in the US, what is the appropriate answer for a question if they ask you why you're doing a different thing here?
دكتور عمار.
So you could very well say, because I have different interests, people have a change of hearts all the time. Or you may very well say, you know what, it's impossible, for this kind of program, or it's not the program for me. The same thing like we said earlier, you could then elaborate on the experience that you've gained from the previous program and how it's going to help the new program. So you're focused not on, I'm not going to get surgery because I've done surgery in Syria, as much as my experience in surgery in the past is going to help me do this other specialty here in the US. Hope that's short enough.
Yeah, أكيد. تفضل. في سؤال عندك تاني راتب؟
Yeah, last question. If you run out of questions, and you guys mentioned that they ask you if you have a question for me, never say no, I don't. If you run out of the question, how do you manage to not go into this situation? Do you ask the same question that you asked the previous person, or how do you deal with it?
طيب دكتور طارق أعطي.
يعني انا بظن ان الحكي معظمه كان على انه And you ask 3, 4, 5 questions to the program director. At some point, you're going to say, "Thank you very much. You've answered all my questions that I've had, and you've put my concerns into rest, etc." يعني more no Allah, you have to continue asking because they are going to keep they are going to keep asking you, "Do you have any more questions?" So you're going to say at some point.
عفوا لا السؤال إنه as a person before program director asked you if you have questions, you already asked the questions. Now you have all your questions answered, and next you're meeting with the program director, and the program director asks you if you have any questions. You already asked the previous person the same questions. Do you again ask the program director the same questions again, or you just say, "I already got my questions answered"?
Yeah, you can ask. If the question is whether you can ask the same question to 2 different people, then the answer is yes, you can.
Okay, sounds good.
طيب هيك بكون so that's إن شاء الله راح يكون هيك آخر سؤال عنا. بدي أشكركم جميعا على الحضور. بطلب من اللوكيشنز شيكاغو ديترويت وكليفلاند وهيوستن إنه يضلوا معنا ما ينهوا الويبينار لو سمحتوا. نحن هيك بنكون خلصنا الويبينار اليوم. شكرا جزيلا للحضور. أنا بعتذر من كل اللي بعثوا لنا أسئلة على الكويستشنز ليست وما قدرنا نجاوب عليهم. بتمنى انه يكون الاجابات اللي حكيناهم بالمحاضره كانت كافيه. اذا ما كانت كافيه نحن ان شاء الله راح نفتح المجال للاسئله على الفيسبوك بيج ان شاء الله اليوم او بكره، وبنحاول انه نجاوب على اكبر قدر من الاسئله. بتشكركم جميعا على حضوركم. بس عندي سؤال واحد راح اعرضه عليكم. بتمنى من كل اللي حاضرين معنا هلا انه يجاوبونا عليه، انه how did you hear about the webinar. هلا هو طلع عندكم على الشاشه، بتمنى انه الجميع يجاوبوا. لحد الآن في عنا بس 50% عم جاوبوا. يا ريت لو باخذ إجابة من الكل.
محمد يعني قصدك each individual من applicant يجاوب عليه، لأنه كلهم عندهم survey they will answer this question.
عفوا مو انتو، مو اللوكيشنز، أنا عم بحكي عن الناس اللي عم تحضر الأونلاين ويبينار. انتو إن شاء الله. طيب ممتاز جدا. يعطيكم العافية. طيب في بالهاندز اوت أنا حاطط هاندز اوت هذا الملف الفيديوز اللي هو للوركشوب القديمة تبع السنة الماضية. كمان ممكن تحضروا، وكمان راح ننزل إن شاء الله الفيديو على اليوتيوب قريبا. راح يوصلكم إن شاء الله بعد ما بتخلصوا الويبينار من هون، راح يوصلكم سيرفي. بتمنى من الجميع إنه you fill out the survey وتبعتوا لنا الفيدباك. وبتمنى يعني نحن بنتمنى يوصلنا أي suggestions، أي feedback منكم مشان نطور الأسلوب تبعنا ونطور الويبينار تبعنا. بتشكركم جميعا وشكرا جزيلا على الحضور، والسلام عليكم.